faces coming on since we've been doing this for a while. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lisa Schneegans, and I'm the co-founder of Buzz360. We are an approved RNC vendor, and I'm very excited about today's presentation. We've known Lonnie for a long time now, and he's a great political strategist. We got together and he showed me Go for the Heart, I don't know, maybe a month ago. And we said, we've got to do this. We've got to bring this message to more people. But Lonnie specializes in political training, campaign management, voter education. He's the chief of staff at American Majority. That's why he's turned out so many people in Arizona tonight, today. Lonnie has been involved in political campaigns at a local level, such as school board and city council races. He's also managed federal races for the U.S. House and Senate from Florida to Washington State. Lonnie has also been active in issue-based campaigns such as ballot initiatives, and he has advised major corporations on how to navigate the political waters, such as oil pipelines, agriculture, tobacco, healthcare, and law and order crime-related issues. Lonnie attended Creighton-Durham Hall High School here in Minnesota in St. Paul. He graduated from Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and has a bachelor's degree of arts in political science. Just let me, somebody can't find the link here. Hang on. So Lonnie is going to start out by presenting Go for the Heart, which I think he created with David Horowitz Foundation. And then if you have questions, will you please put them in the chat? And then we will get to them at the end of his presentation. So he will answer those questions. They're just going to save them till the end. After Lonnie's done, then I'm going to come back on and talk briefly about how Buzz360 products can help deliver the messages that Lonnie is talking about. So Lonnie, if you are ready, I am going to turn it over to you and you can share your screen.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate that kind introduction. And I'm glad that we recorded that so I can play that for my mother. She would be very impressed by that. But are you able to see my screen, Lisa?
Yes, I am. Everything's good.
Alrighty. Excellent. Well, I just wanted to thank everybody again. My name is Lonnie Leitner, and I am the Chief of Staff at American Majority. If you have not heard of American Majority, please check us out at americanmajority.org. We are a political training institute. We train candidates and grassroots activists, candidates how to run for office, grassroots activists how to get their candidates elected, and how to hold elected officials accountable. Not that I'm counting, but we have 265 days to save America, 265 days until the election here in this country. And everybody on this call can play a role, whether or not you're running for office, you're helping a candidate, you're going to make phone calls, you're going to march in parades, or you're going to just write a check to a candidate or local party. Everybody here can and must play a role if we're going to save America. It's not like I'm asking you to storm the beaches of Normandy, but we've got 265 days for everybody to figure out what it is that you're going to do and then do it. Don't count on the person sitting next to you today to do what you should be doing yourself. So my overall goal in this presentation is really to teach you guys some bad manners, because we as conservatives, we are just too damn polite. So I hope to teach you some bad manners along the way. But before we get started, I like to put everybody into categories. So whether or not you're a candidate or a grassroots activist or just a concerned citizen that loves their country, when we talk to people, we have to put them into categories. And I like to just put them in three categories. I'll start with your saints, your sinners and your savables. So the saints, probably everybody on this call is a saint. We're going to vote for the conservative candidate no matter what. Now, the sinners, these people, I'll just use Donald Trump as an example. Donald Trump could, cure cancer and end world poverty and hunger. And these sinners are never going to vote for Trump or the conservative. So we have to forget about them. We have to focus on the savables. These are the people that we can be persuaded. And looking at the general election, sadly, this is probably 5 to maybe 12% of the voting population. So as much as we think, well, if we could just talk to these sinners a little bit longer, we're going to get them to change their mind. We're not going to do it. So we've just got to put them aside and just focus on the savables. So I'm going to dig in, right? I'm going to just jump right into this. So again, conservatives, Republicans, we need to stop talking like accountants and administrators, and we need to start speaking to the hearts of voters. And we have to remember what Mike Tyson said. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Now think about it. Think of your typical Republican campaigns. Seems like they've got a pretty good, campaign strategy until the left comes out punching and they hit them. And then the Republicans, they just fall apart. So we've got to remember, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So maybe, just maybe, we as conservatives and Republicans need to go on offense and throw the first punch. So as Lisa said, this Go for the Heart training was developed with David Horowitz. And for those of you who don't know David Horowitz is a former radical leftist who was raised by card-carrying communists. So David Horowitz, he knows and he thinks and he operates. He knows how the left operates. And because of that great knowledge, he's a prolific author, and he's written Go for the Heart, which we have turned into this beautiful training. So we'll just listen to his remarks on why he wrote Go for the Heart.
I wrote Go for the Heart to sort of put in a formula, something that's simple, easy to understand, so you have to communicate in obviously in politics to enormous numbers of people. And they have to get it instantly, and everybody can understand that in order to fight the Democrats, you have to put their victims in their face every time you talk about a policy.
So when it comes to mobilizing emotions, the left, the Democrats, they beat conservatives and Republicans. And those of us on the center right, on the conservative side, we seem that we're unable to learn from our losses. Yet year after year, campaign cycle after campaign cycle, the Democrats accuse Republicans and conservatives of the same imaginary crimes. And we all know what these crimes are. We're anti-women. The Democrats say the Republicans were always waging a war on women. The Democrats always say that Republicans are racist. They don't care about minorities. And the Democrats are always saying that the Republicans and conservatives, that we don't care about the poor. So they do this election cycle after election cycle, yet year after year, Republicans and conservatives, we have no effective response to neutralize these attacks. Now, I'm going to be showing you some videos throughout this presentation, and I will just forewarn you that some of these videos will make your blood pressure rise and boil, so I apologize about that in advance. But if you've ever been in a discussion with a leftist, and notice that I call them leftists because they're not liberal. There's really nothing liberal about these Democrats except for, hard drugs, sex, coddling criminals, and bowing to America's enemies. They're leftists. And language is part of how we need to get our message across to the savable voters. But here's a perfect example of what the left says about Republicans.
Without going on much longer, let me just simply say this. We have a president who, as I've said many times, and I say this without any joy in my heart, we have a president who is a racist, who is a sexist, who is a homophobe, who is a xenophobe, and he is a religious bigot. And his...
I'm not going to go in too much farther on that because we all get the point, but here's another example.
What are the next things that are going to be attacked? Because this MAGA crowd is really the most extreme political organization that's existed in American history.
The most extreme political organization that's ever existed in history. So when the Democrats attack the Republicans, when the left attacks the right as defenders of the party of the wealthy who are not paying their fair share, how do we typically respond? Conservatives respond by saying, stop the class warfare rhetoric. If you think about it, this response, while it's a response, does not actually answer the charge that the right, that conservatives are defending the wealthy and are uncaring. How crucial is caring? There are many, many issues in political campaigns, but you'll learn here today that caring is the most crucial issue in any campaign, from dog catcher to president of the United States. And I'll show you why. So in 2016, 65% of Asian Americans and 66% of Hispanic Americans cast their ballots for Hillary Rodham Clinton, even though these groups share many conservative values, are family-oriented, entrepreneurial, and traditional. These conventional people voted for Hillary because they were persuaded that Donald Trump didn't care for minorities. So when the left, when the Democrats attack the rich, it is an emotional appeal to all those who are not rich. It tells them that somebody cares about them. The conservatives' response to the Democrats' response to attacks is that's class warfare rhetoric. Class warfare rhetoric, it has no human face. It's all about a political style. So when the right tries to use class warfare rhetoric against the left, it doesn't work because class warfare is an abstraction. When the left criticizes the wealthy for not paying their fair share, it is a direct attack on a very easily identified target, the wealthy. Even some progressive wealthy people, including entertainment figures and sports figures, have been outraged by these attacks. They know exactly how much money in taxes they pay each year for the crime of having money. So what are elections? Elections are us versus them. They're adversarial. They are about defeating opponents. And because of that, elections are necessarily about us and them. The left are as adept at framing them, and the right are not. Think about it. The left, the Democrats, they know how to incite envy and resentment, distrust, and fear. And more importantly, they know how to direct these volatile emotions towards their conservative opponents. Meanwhile, over here, the conservatives are busy complaining about the style of the Democrats' arguments. So let's think about it. Conservatives are defending the rich at your expense. Progressives are employing class warfare rhetoric. Which argument is going to grab voters more effectively? which is going to make voters believe the candidate cares about them. So I'm going to jump back. In 2012, when Mitt Romney ran against Barack Obama, in a year that the Republicans should have run away with the presidential election, we all know that Barack Obama coasted to re-election. But that year, CNN asked an exit poll. And an exit poll is basically when somebody goes in to vote, when they come out, they're asked a few questions why they just voted in the way that they voted. So during the 2012 election, CNN conducted this poll and it said, what is the most important candidate quality to your vote? So again, this is Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama. Strong leader, shares your values, has a vision for the future, and cares about people. Well, now let's think about this. Over 54% of Americans who voted in that election said that Mitt Romney was a strong leader. Over 54% of Americans who voted in that election said that Mitt Romney shared their values. And over 54% of Americans that voted in that election said that Mitt Romney has a vision for the future. Well, when it comes to cares about people, any guesses? Mitt Romney got his butt kicked. Romney won the first three, as I said, by more than 54% of the vote, but he lost cares about people by 81 to 18%. Again, cares about people. People didn't think Mitt Romney cared about them. Now, I'm giving a little hint on this slide. What was the very first attack that the Democrats attacked Mitt Romney on? Well, it was, and you may remember, he hates puppies because he tied his dog to the roof of the car on a family road trip. Now, as ridiculous as we may think that sounds today, the reality is the Democrats beat Mitt Romney by what I call death of 1,000 cuts. You know, it all started with the dog on the roof and Mitt Romney didn't respond. And the campaign got so aggressive, they accused Mitt Romney of killing a woman with cancer, which we will see here coming up, that they didn't respond to. So if you're not caring about people, you're bound to lose any election in which you are engaged in. So jumping up to 2016, Trump versus Hillary. So in 2016, Hillary was 25 points lower in the cares about people poll question than Obama had scored in 2012, and she lost her election. So in 2020, which one of these four candidate qualities mattered most in deciding? So you can see here, can unite the country, 75% for Biden, is a strong leader, Trump, but the cares about people, Trump was dead even with Biden, and we all know how that election ended. So you got it. Cares about people is not one among many issues. It is the most central, most important issue in any political campaign. So let's get into some of the failures of past campaigns. Now, as I kicked off this presentation, I said, conservatives, Republicans, we need to stop talking like accountants and administrators and put our pie charts and our budgets and graphs aside, and we need to start speaking to the hearts of voters. So our past campaigns, we've been very administrative, where our Democrat opponents have been very combative. We've all been about policies, where our Democrat opponents have been about politics. As conservatives, we've been about budgets and pie charts, where our opponents on the left have been about the flesh and blood of victims and their opponents' policies. So when we do mention victims, they are frequently small business owners and other job creators, people who in the eyes of most Americans are rich, who are wealthy. I'm going to show a perfect example of this now.
Successful, you didn't get there on your own. You didn't get there on your own. I'm always struck by people who think, well, it must be because I was just so smart. There are a lot of smart people out there. It must be because I worked harder than everybody else. Let me tell you something. If you got a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
My father's hands didn't build this company. My hands didn't build this company. My son's hands aren't building this company. It's somebody else take out the loan on my father's house to finance the equipment. Somebody else make payroll every week to figure out where it's coming from. President Obama, they're killing us out here. Through hard work and a little bit of luck, we built this business. Why are you demonizing us for it? We are the solution, not the problem. Time we had somebody who believes in us, someone who believes that achievement should be rewarded, not punished. We need somebody who believes in America.
The idea to say that Steve Jobs didn't build Apple, that Henry Ford didn't build Ford Motor, to say something like that is not just foolishness, it's insulting to every entrepreneur, every innovator in America. It's wrong. President Obama attacks success, and therefore under President Obama, we have less success, and I will change that.
So I shared that ad that was played by the Romney campaign, and I share that the first half of that ad was absolutely a very powerful, amazing ad. Think about it. The sitting president of the United States gift wrapped for the Republicans and Mitt Romney such a wonderful thing by saying, if you have a business, you didn't build that. And leave it to Mitt Romney to completely blow that. And how did he blow it? You might have picked up on it in the last part of the ad. He was talking about Steve Jobs and Henry Ford. Well, do you think most Americans who are struggling paycheck to paycheck to put their kids through school and put food on the table, do you think they have any sympathy for anybody like Steve Jobs or Henry Ford? So we completely blew that gift wrap gift from Obama by defending the ultra rich, instead of Mitt Romney defending the men and women who were walking into that factory floor to provide for their families. So to counter the left's attack, them as defenders of the comfortable and inflictors of the weak, conservatives, we really only have one answer that we're using right now. And we say, this is a misunderstanding. Look at the facts. We're not actually doing that. We're not that bad. Well, this defense, it sounds defensive, whiny, and complicated. Nobody's buying it. So we've got to understand that conservatives and leftists, we approach politics with fundamentally different visions of what politics is all about. And because of such, these visions color not only the way each side thinks about questions of policy, but how they enter the arena to face their opponents. And I think you guys will understand this. So progressives today, if you think about it, they're no longer the party of John F. Kennedy, not even the party of Hubert Humphrey. They're now a party led by socialists and progressives who are convinced that their policies are paving the way to a better world.
Robert Bork's America is a land in which women would be forced into back alley abortions. Blacks would sit at segregated lunch counters. Rogue police could break down citizens' doors in midnight raids. And school children could not be taught about evolution. Writers and artists would be censored at the whim of government.
So the left, they're not shy of what they're trying to do. They're very bold. Now, there are not many conservatives on the national stage today that would go to the Senate floor and speak as bluntly as Ted Kennedy did. So everything that the left talks about, these visions of moral and social progress, it has profound consequences for the way the left conducts their political battles. Their goal is a new order of society. We've all heard social justice, social justice. The left, they think of themselves as social redeemers, people who are going to change the world. And because of this belief in a redemptive future, it accounts for their passion and their furious personal assaults on anybody who stands in their way. Now, think about it. When Bill Clinton was president, he once told his advisor, Dick Morris, that he had to understand that Bob Dole, who was a moderate World War II hero, that Bill Clinton wanted him to understand that Bob Dole is evil. Think about that. Bill Clinton told his advisors that he had to understand that Bob Dole is evil. So here's an ad that was run in 2012. Actually, I'll talk about it after it plays, but please pay close attention to the accusation in this ad.
I don't think Mitt Romney understands what he's done to people's lives by closing the plant. I don't think he realizes that people's lives completely changed. When Mitt Romney and Bain closed the plant, I lost my health care, and my family lost their health care. And a short time after that, my wife became ill. I don't know how long she was sick. And I think maybe she didn't say anything because she knew that we couldn't afford the insurance. And then one day she became ill, and I took her up to the Jackson County Hospital and admitted her for pneumonia, and that's when they found the cancer. And by then it was stage 4. There was nothing they could do for her, and she passed away in 22 days. I do not think Mitt Romney realizes what he's done to anyone, and furthermore, I do not think Mitt Romney is concerned.
Priorities USA action.
So this ad essentially accuses Mitt Romney of killing a woman with cancer. This ad, they spent over, I believe it was about $28 to $30 million in about 7 battleground states. They ran this in 7 or 8 battleground states, close to $30 million, accusing Mitt Romney of killing a woman with cancer. Well, I wish I could show you the Romney campaign's response to this ad, but it didn't exist because there was no response. So if you're a candidate and you ever get attacked, you have to respond. You have to set the record straight, because if the left keeps telling their lie, it's eventually going to sink in. So still to this day, millions of Americans think that Mitt Romney was responsible for this poor husband's wife's tragic death due to cancer. So the right, so conservatives, we see the left as mistaken. We think that they're wrong about issues, where the left, they see the right as enemies of the just and of the good. We all remember the Buffalo shooter in 2022, some headlines that just make you sick. The Buffalo shooter isn't a lone wolf. He's a mainstream Republican. The right-wing extremists who control the modern GOP are all gripped by a racist delusion. The shooter is just the latest to act on it. You can't make these headlines up. Joe Biden delivers nasty speech blaming Republicans after leftists shoot up Buffalo store. So let's move on to some of the issues. Why does the left tackle the issues that they tackle? Well, the reason the Obama administration made Obamacare their priority is because they are social missionaries whose goal is to fundamentally transform the United States of America, as Barack Obama warned 5 days before the 2008 election.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
So progressives are in politics to achieve social justice, to transform the system and the way Americans live.
I don't want a nation just for me, I want a nation for everybody.
We can't walk away and not feel hope and not feel that glimmer of light again.
I don't think I was ever this interested in the voting process.
It's the first time I've ever felt compelled to be part of a movement such as this.
I'm gonna get them back involved in this process, the grassroots level first, and then let it go. That's gonna make me happy.
So everything the left does in every campaign they conduct, it's about mobilizing their political armies to bring about this glorious future. It's about advancing its agenda, one program and one candidate at a time. There's always a sense of urgency in every campaign they wage. The vision of this glorious future that they describe puts urgency into their crusades, and it actually encouraged them to hate their opponents. So progressives' hatred for conservatives is thus not a reaction to a particular issue or even a particular slip of the tongue. It is a hatred for what conservatives are, for what conservatives stand for. If you think about it, conservatives are people who believe in limited government. And because of that, by its very nature, limited government means the death of progressives' dreams. The right is reactionary and hateful because they stand in the way of a society that can and should care for every man, woman, and child from cradle to grave. In progressives' eyes, conservatives actually are anti-woman, anti-minority, and anti-poor. The right opposes the very idea that government should function as a social saver. Instead, and we all know this, conservatives, the right, we take a different view of politics that is fundamentally different than our opponents on the left. Think about any candidate on the right. They don't aspire to change the world. No, the right, we want to repair systems that are broken. We're not missionaries. We're not selling a land of impossible dreams. Such practical agendas do not inspire them to despise their opponents or regard them as evil. Conservatives think of their opponents as mistaken about how to fix particular problems. The right hopes for a future better than the present, but they are mindful that things could be even worse. But voters have already been told not to trust their arguments because they are arguments of enemies of women, children, minorities, and the poor. So the only way to confront the emotional campaign that the left wages in every election cycle is through an equally emotional campaign that puts the aggressors on defense. And I know we're not comfortable with this, but we have to attack our opponents in the same moral language. We have to identify them as the bad guys, the oppressors of women, children, minorities, the middle class, and the poor. Because if we do this, and only if we do this, it will take away from them the moral high ground in which they now occupy. We all know this, but it warrants its own slide. You cannot confront an emotionally based moral argument with an intellectual analysis. Yet this is basically and almost exclusively what the right and conservatives do in our campaign. Again, you cannot confront an emotionally based moral argument with intellectual analysis. So what is the winning strategy, you're asking me? Well, let me tell you, it's a three-part strategy. Number one, we have to put the aggressors on defense. We're not, like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Well, we're no longer waiting to get punched in the face. We are going to put the aggressors on the defense. Let's punch them in the face first. Put the aggressors on defense. And number two, this is so important. We have to put their victims in front of every argument and every policy. I'm going to say this again. Put their victims of their failed policies in front of every argument and every policy that we make. And number three, this is kind of common sense, but I'm going to say it anyways. We have to start the campaign now because the left already has. On the left, politics is a 365-day-a-year job, and those of us on the right just think that it happens during even years. We're badly mistaken. We have to start the campaign now, and we always have to be campaigning. So you have two major weapons in politics. You've got hope and you've got fear. And I always joke, I was raised Catholic, so I was raised by hope and fear. But let me show you what that means when it comes to political campaigns. So, as David Horowitz said in his opening monologue there, the weapons of political campaigns are images and sound bites designed to inspire the emotions within people of fear and hope. Barack Obama won the presidency in 2008 on a campaign of hope. 4 years later, he won re-election on a campaign of fear. Now, I love you all for joining me here, and I hate to make you guys even watch this. This is one of those videos that I said will make your blood pressure rise, but here it goes anyway, so bear with me.
Because if we are willing to work for it and fight for it and believe in it, then I am absolutely certain that generations from now, we will be able to look back and tell our children that this was the moment when we began to provide care for the sick and good jobs to the jobless. This was the moment when the rise of the oceans began to slow and our planet began to heal. This was the moment when we ended the war and secured our nation and restored our image as the last best hope on earth. This was the moment. This was the time when we came together to remake this great nation so that it may always reflect our very best selves and our highest ideals. Thank you, Minnesota. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.
So hope works, and that was a mouthful. Care for the sick, jobs for the jobless, the planet began to heal, the rise of the oceans. Oh, makes me want to puke. But so hope works, and we saw Obama in a very hopeful way walk to the presidency very easily, but fear is a much stronger and more compelling emotion. The left, our Democrat opponents, they exploit fear to the hilt, while all too often conservatives and Republicans and the right were just too damn polite to even use it.
Only decades ago, women suffered through horrifying back alley abortions, or they used dangerous methods when they had no other recourse. So when the Republican Party launched an all-out assault on women's health, pushing bills to limit access to vital services, we had to ask, why is the GOP trying to send women back to the back alley?
MoveOn.org, political action is responsible for the content.
Very
of this
effective ad accusing Republicans of pushing women back to the back alley for abortions. Now, again, they are targeting this ad to very specific people, to, you know, undecided single women. And this fearful ad is very effective, off the charts how quick this will make an undecided female voter move swiftly into the Democrats' camp. So hope in politics is an appeal to the heart, not to the head, to emotions and not to reason. Now, I'm going to play this 1984 Ronald Reagan campaign commercial, and it's very hopeful. But listen to the words and watch the images, and we'll discuss why this was so effective at the end of this commercial.
It's morning again in America. Today, more men and women will go to work than ever before in our country's history. With interest rates at about half the record highs of 1980, nearly 2,000 families today will buy new homes, more than at any time in the past 4 years. This afternoon, 6,500 young men and women will be married. And with inflation at less than half of what it was just 4 years ago, they can look forward with confidence to the future. It's morning again in America. And under the leadership of President Reagan, our country is prouder and stronger and better. Why would we ever want to return to where we were less than 4 short years ago?
I'm not gonna lie, every now and then I just pull up that ad and watch that ad. It gives me just kind of the chills. It makes me feel good to be an American. But this hopeful ad was effective because it outlined Reagan's platform, his agenda for why he should be reelected. But whether it was talking about inflation at half the rate it was 4 years earlier, or the fact that 6,500 men and women were getting married today, he was very effective and very good at putting a face on all of his policies. Where I told you in our 3-point plan on how we're going to defeat the left is we have to put a face on all of their failed policies. It works just in the reverse for us. And our policies, you know, Reagan was effective because he was successfully able to put a face, not just a number, but a real human face on why his policies were working for the American people and why he deserved to be reelected. So in 2008, in the 2008 election, Hope was the first Black man running for president with a serious prospect of winning. All Barack Obama had to do to inspire hope was to be Black, speak standard English, and make this gesture, dishonest and empty as it turned out to be, that promised to unite Americans and move the country past its racial divisions. So when the right uses the underdog narrative, it is mainly a story of opportunity, of Americans rising from humble beginnings. I'm going to play, I could not come up with a better example of somebody rising from the humblest of beginnings that made something of themselves. But let's play this clip and then we'll discuss it after.
And on a personal note, a little girl grows up in Jim Crow, Birmingham, the segregated city of the South, where her parents can't take her to a movie theater or to a restaurant. But they have her absolutely convinced that even if she can't have a hamburger at the Woolworths lunch counter, she could be president of the United States if she wanted to be, and she becomes the Secretary of State.
Again, another one of those clips that the hair in the back of my neck stands up. So this obviously is a great story of hope, and it was very effective in the hands of speakers like Condoleezza Rice. But it wasn't strong on promoting fear or in directing that fear towards political opponents in a way that maximizes its emotional impact. And let me show you what I mean here. So when the left, when the Democrats, when they present themselves as champions of the powerless, of the American underdogs. Their counter argument is that government is required to provide opportunity for those who lack it, whatever the tax rate is. The left's narrative that the private sector doesn't provide enough opportunity for those left behind and government programs are necessary to fill in the gap. Progressives want to help people who need help. This is a powerful emotional appeal to all Americans, even to conservatives. So when progressives tell their underdog story, it's not an abstraction. No, quite the contrary. It's a powerful, polarizing, emotionally charged attack on their conservative adversaries. Here's a great example of this.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, the Republicans are the real threat. They are the real threat to our women. They are the real threat to our children. They are the real threat to clean water, clean air, and the rich landscape of America. They are the real threat to fairness. They are the real threat to equality. The Republicans are the real threat to an enlightened Supreme Court. And don't you remember that? Don't you forget that?
The Republicans are the real threat to our women. The Republicans are the real threat to our children. The Republicans are the real threat to clean air, clean water, to equality. So if we want to persuade women and minorities that we care about them, we have to stand up for them. They have to defend them, and they have to show them that the left is playing them for suckers. The left is exploiting them. The left and the Democrats are oppressing them, and the left and the Democrats are profiting from their suffering. The left regard politics as a war conducted by other means. The left, the Democrats, they seek to demonize and destroy their opponents as the enemies of progress, of social justice, and minority rights. So conservatives, the right can only counter these attacks by turning the guns around, by exposing them as the enforcers of injustice, particularly to minorities and the poor, the exploiters of society's vulnerable, and the reactionary proponents of policies that have proven bankrupt and destructive all over the world. So again, the 3-step plan on how we defeat the left in our political campaigns. Number 1, put the aggressors on defense. No longer wait to get punched in the face. Put the aggressors on defense. Number 2, put their victims in front of every argument and every policy. Put their victims in front of every argument and every policy. And number 3, start the campaign now, because the left already has. Now, I'm just going to be wrapping up. I've got about 3 more slides to show you guys. But on Election Day 2016, according to Gallup, Donald Trump had a 36% approval rating and a 61% unfavorable rating. This was the worst unfavorable rating in presidential history, but we all knew what happened. People didn't think he was this warm and fuzzy guy. They thought, well, this guy's kind of an SOB, but you know what? He cares about people like me, and he's going to fight like hell for people like me. So they gave him a shot. And this just is an example of how Trump is not your typical Republican.
One of the things people love about you is you speak your mind and you don't use a politician's filter. However, that is not without its downsides, in particular when it comes to women. You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account—
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't. Your Twitter account—
Thank you.
For the record, it was well beyond Rosie O'Donnell.
Yes, I'm sure it was.
Your Twitter account has several disparaging comments about women's looks. You once told a contestant on Celebrity Apprentice it would be a pretty picture to see her on her knees. Does that sound to you like the temperament of a man we should elect as president? And how will you answer the charge from Hillary Clinton, who is likely to be the Democratic nominee, that you are part of the war on women?
I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct. I've been challenged by so many people, and I don't frankly have time for total political correctness. And to be honest with you, this country doesn't have time either. This country is in big trouble. We don't win anymore. We lose to China. We lose to Mexico, both in trade and at the border.
So I played that clip to show that, in case you haven't noticed, Donald Trump isn't your typical conservative. He's not your typical Republican candidate. He actually fights back. And I would argue that if Megyn Kelly asked that question of any other Republican in the country, they probably would have just put their head down, folded their folder, and walked off of the stage with their tail between their legs. But not Trump. He actually fought back, and he retook control of the narrative in the question, and he answered in such a forceful way, and it was just so powerful. I want to show another example, again, of how Trump talks and says what many people in the Zoom meeting, we probably all think it, but we never say it. And let's just listen to this next example here.
We have a divided nation because people like her, and believe me, she has tremendous hate in her heart. And when she said deplorables, she meant it. And when she said irredeemable, they're irredeemable. You didn't mention that. But when she said they're irredeemable, to me, that might have been even worse.
She said
She's
some of
got
them are.
She's got tremendous hatred. And this country cannot take another 4 years of Barack Obama. And that's what you're getting with her.
So I played that clip. Everybody on this call, we've been in a discussion with the Democrat, and we've all been called a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, anti-woman, anti-poor. And we respond by calling them liberal. Again, we all know we can no longer respond by calling them liberals. We have to call them for what they are. And Donald Trump in that clip showed how we fight back. Now I'm going to play two more ads. This is a local ad that was run a few campaign cycles ago here in Minnesota, where the Republican candidate successfully put a face on the victim of the Democrats, which ended up winning us a House seat in the Minnesota state legislature. So again, this is a good example of putting the victim's face on every policy and every argument that we make in a political campaign.
My name is Pat Moss, and I'm a victim of sexual assault. When my story of sexual assault came up on the House floor, Ron Earhart laughed it off. He laughed so uncontrollably, he couldn't finish the statement he was going to make. I don't know how Ron Earhart can look at himself in the mirror.
I'm going to end by showing one last example of a hard-hitting ad. Again, there's not any words in this ad. It's just a lot of visuals, but this is just to kind of get us ready for the onslaught that's going to come this election cycle.
Is this what Donald Trump and Ed Gillespie mean by the American dream? Latino Victory Fund paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
So I just want to end here before I throw it back to Lisa, I'm going to answer any questions that you may have. For those of you who might have more in-depth questions or want further explanation, you will see my contact information. My email address is Lonnie, LONNY, @AmericanMajority.org. And I just like to leave it at this. I believe in Lincoln's words that America is the last best hope on earth. And because we are the last best hope on earth, we need leaders to represent our country that represent that last best hope. And this is going to be the longest political season of our life, but it's going to be the most important political season of our life. And I'll just leave you with a verse from 2 Timothy that I often read to myself during these political campaigns. And we all know it. It's, I fought the good fight, I finished the race, and I kept the faith. So I really hope that everybody on this call, that we go out and we work hard to save America. We fight hard for our country, for our—
I'm going to move money right now.
And keep the faith out there. So thank you very much for joining. And Lisa, I will stop sharing and turn it back over to you.
Well, we do have some questions, Lonnie, that I can go through, and maybe you can give some insight. First, we have somebody that is asking, how would you, in the Romney ad that you played, how would you respond to that?
Just say the first part in the Romney ad. That,
yeah, the when they were talking about the woman dying from cancer, how would you have responded to that?
Well, anything would have been better than nothing, but I'll just leave it at this. When Romney was running for president, it was like he was ashamed of his wealth. Where when Trump was running for president, he would get pissed off when people would undervalue or underestimate the value of his wealth. And, Mitt Romney was ashamed of working for Bain Capital. And he should have taken that narrative, in my eyes, and talked about the thousands and thousands of jobs that he created during his time at Bain Capital. You know, whether it was Sports Authority, Office Max, you know, all these conglomerates of these businesses where, you know, men and women, and then they had jobs, they provided for their families, they put their kids through school, they were able to, you know, meet their version of the American dream by jobs that were provided by Mitt Romney and Bain Capital, and he never did that. So.
Okay, and then we have another question. It's really an important one from Brad Ganser here in Minnesota. Where did you buy your hat?
Well, Brad, you know, I was in Vegas not so long ago, and walking down the street at God knows what time, there was some pretty ladies selling these hats. So I did buy an extra one that I could give you.
Okay, so then we have another question here. So is any national organization going to do this? I can talk to someone in line at Walgreens, but I can't produce emotional ads on TV. Are the RNC or the national campaigns getting this message?
Well, I hope so. And you know, whether or not they act on it, but you know, what I can say to you, for example, if you're in line at Walmart or, you know, getting a coffee at Starbucks, and the women in front of you are talking about abortion, for example, and talking about how extreme the Republicans are, you know, we have the tendency to run away from these controversial issues, where I would say not so fast. It's not the Republicans who are the extremists, it's the Democrats. You know, the Democrats are the extreme party because under the Democrats' rule, a baby has no rights until the baby leaves the hospital. So they want to pin it on us as being the extremists. We have to turn the guns around and we have to show the American people and these people, you know, whatever the issue is. I'm just using abortion for this example. So even if you may not see these emotional type ads on your local television set, we can still hopefully do it every day in conversation with people that we run across.
Good. Another one from Cicely Davis. I like the demeanor of Trump. He's an often criticized. So do we mimic him without naming or calling?
Well, that's a good question. You know, people in the past have said that, you know, Trump's endorsed all of these candidates and they failed. Well, I think the reason they failed is because they weren't Trump-like. They took this huge endorsement and then they just waffled, you know, waffled the endorsement. You got to fight fire with fire. You got to be tough. You got to be, you know, tough like Trump. And, you know, having his endorsement is one thing, but being Trump-like and, you know, fighting back is how I think candidates and Republicans are going to be successful. And I've all too often, you know, I found that, you know, candidates in the suburbs, you know, where I live here, you've got these cute Republican candidates who, you know, they say they love everything about Trump's policies, but they hate Trump. So they try to get cute with who they're voting for. You know, just be upfront with the American people and the voter and just tell them the truth. Say, look, I think Trump's an asshole or a son of a bitch, but I actually like his policies. Just don't get cute with, you know, because you're losing people. You know, either embrace it or, you know, run from it. But this gray middle ground is going to get you nowhere.
Right. I totally agree with that. You have to either be that or leave it alone. Okay, so I think that's all the questions that I have in the chat. I'm going to, except for Brad says he doesn't think he can pull off the hat. Is any other questions there? We are running over a little bit, and we are happy to take a couple more questions if we can, maybe one or two. So if you have any more questions for Lonnie, that'd be great. If nothing else,
And everybody has my email, so please do email me. Again, I really appreciate you guys taking an hour of your day to listen to me, and I hope I taught you some bad manners and stop being so damn polite out there.
Somebody's asking if we'll get a copy of the presentation. We always record these. As you can see, I've been recording it the entire time. So I will send out a link after we put it up on our website, so everybody can download it and take it back to the rest of their team, or show it in a, county party unit, or wherever they want to. I think, Lonnie, you're okay with that, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And for those of you who would like me to do a training like this in your community or your local party unit or whatnot, please get in touch with me, and either myself or somebody with American Majority will be happy to do this presentation for you.
And so because we are over right now, I'm gonna forgo kind of the presentation that I had, but I do want to just put up my contact information here, and I can share my screen here. Just share my screen, and this is my contact information. If I can get rid of this, there we go. If you want to reach out to us, we have these once a month. There's a couple of things that we are thinking about for the next month. And if you have any ideas or things that you'd want to hear more about, I'd love to have it in the chat. Next week or next month, we are crossing our fingers that we're going to have somebody from the RNC coming and presenting about data. And Buzz 360 will also put a little bit about a case study that we've done on the DeSantis in Iowa. We were fortunate enough to be involved in that, and some of the results of what we used in with our Swipe Red product were pretty astounding. So we'll probably have a little bit of that. So those are what we have coming up. And if we don't have any more questions, I want to be respectful of anybody's time. We did go a little bit over, but this was great, Lonnie. I really appreciate you joining us today and taking the time. You are indeed a patriot, and we need to follow what you're saying.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.